Most entrepreneurs think their financial problem is finding better investments. Today's guest says that belief is exactly what's costing them the most. Mauro Campagnaro doesn't help people buy products. He helps them fix structure. And once you hear how he thinks about tax, planning, and wealth, you may realize that you've been solving the wrong problem entirely. So, hey, Mauro, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg. Thanks very much for having me. Much appreciated.
Excellent. So listen, Mauro, most entrepreneurs believe that their biggest financial challenge is choosing the right investment. So in your experience, what's the real problem that they're missing?
There's a lot of things that are missing, but there's three major things that come to mind. So, first of all, they don't have the right structure. We get the conversation around what is your structure. There's income coming in and they've got some retained earnings. Is that cash in the bank or not? Well, we'll find that out too. But retained earnings really is a good indicator of, are you making money? But there's no intentional design as to where it should go and how it should be protected. Secondly, they focus on product instead of planning. So a lot of folks say, well, what should I invest in? They're not asking what to invest in before they've decided what they're actually building. Thirdly, they think growth equals wealth. And we can find growth in all sorts of investments, but the reality is what are you preserving? The preservation is, especially from a tax and leakage perspective, is what's actually creating it.
Yeah, that's the adage. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
Yeah, 100%. That's right.
Okay, that's interesting. Most people feel that they're responsible and they're doing the right things, but what you're saying is they're actually, perhaps they're a little misguided.
Yeah, and there's other advisors out there that might be having a different opinion of how and to build the wealth. But at the end of the day, it really is about protecting and preservation, and how do we mitigate a lot of those things there's an ability to take that away from the equation and actually preserve the wealth rather than just head forward and tackling, let's go get the growth, right? Because at the end of the day, taxation is huge, especially in Canada.
Yeah, agreed. So tell me, where do business owners usually place their trust that feels responsible, but actually limits their outcomes?
Yeah, I love this question. So, there's three major things. Again, it's first of all, they start with their accountant. And I love my accountant friends out there and colleagues. We definitely need them in the equation as far as what can we do to, have a properly structured accounting guideline. But at the end of the day, accountants and respectfully, they're trained to look and report on the past, what's happened in the past. They don't necessarily design the future. They can, if you ask specific questions, yeah, sure, they can help you find certain strategies to mitigate some tax. But, at the end of the day, that's one thing that comes up is they rely on their accountant as the planner. Secondly, past success. So what worked to make money in the past isn't necessarily what protects it. So at the end of the day, yes, you can make money, and there's really successful entrepreneurs that make a ton of money. But at the end of the day, it's how do we preserve it and protect it again? And third is speed. Moving fast and being productive doesn't mean that you're not doing the right things. It's just you're going fast, you're making money, but without structure, it really amplifies all these mistakes that I see.
All right. So if you're not set up properly, you can get there as fast as you want. You're just going to fail that much faster.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, a lot of cases, and that's what runs. And the statistics are there for you, right? Most companies fail in the first 5 years. So, you got to be very, very pragmatic about how you structure yourself and build that wealth, and make sure that you drive that top line, because it does correct a lot of the mistakes. But at the end of the day, structure will help build wealth over the long term.
Yeah. So again, I'm hearing that it may feel smart on the surface, but it's creating some blind spots that really need to be aware of. So Let me ask you this then. What belief do you hear that tells you immediately if someone is still thinking transactionally or thinking strategically?
Yeah. There's generally three phases that give it away. So insurance, for example, insurance is viewed as an expense versus an asset. And If you really looked into that particular asset class, and I beg people to have a good look at that and investigate insurance as an asset class, then it turns the conversation from an expense to a wealth building asset. And then they say, my accountant handles that. Well, yes, your accountant does handle a lot of things. However, again, back to the planning is how, are they helping you plan things? And then a lot of things, I'll just pay the tax later. But the whole process is let's mitigate as much tax as possible. So having a properly helps us mitigate the tax and put strategies in place in order to reduce those taxes. If someone says one of those things, I already know that their plan will break at some point.
Yeah, interesting. So, and yet for some people, something eventually clicks. So I'm curious about those moments. So what is actually the moment when a business owner realizes that they've been solving the wrong problem?
Yeah, great question. It usually happens in 3 realizations. I get in a conversation. It's like, well, I pay too much tax. I'm giving it a lot of it away. 100% you are. And that really creates the conversation is how do we not give it all away? They notice that their net worth is not keeping pace with their income. So they realize that they've been busy, but not protected. That's their question. Stop being about returns and start being about structure. So, question needs to be, what is the right structure in order for us to maximize the performance, but also keep it, and then being as tax efficient? There's so many rules about how we keep those taxes in our pocket legally, and accountants do help, but at the end of the day, we need a planner in place in order to help that process.
Okay, so once those questions change, I suspect that the pace usually changes too, and entrepreneurs are, for the most part, are not really known to slow down or proceed with caution. So what decisions do entrepreneurs rush into that you always slow down?
Yeah, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur as well. And have I been caught in that reactive, let's move forward really quickly syndrome? Yes, of course I have. But over the years, you start to realize that speed is it might hurt you. And so you look at things like, you slow down the way you start thinking, and you say, okay, well, where is it that I'm going to invest next? Then you say, well, how much risk am I able to take? So it depends on the stage you're in and what life stage you're in as to how much risk you're going to take. And then which solution to buy or invest in? Those are more the things like where to invest, how much risk do I take, and what is the right solution? So I slow all that down until we can get the structure right, because speed inside a bad structure just creates bigger problems faster. Yeah,
that seems to run pretty counter to the way the rest of the industry operates. So let's talk about that. What does the financial industry overcomplicate?
Well, the financial industry does complicate quite a few things, but it's actually quite simple. Using tax efficient structures. So when you're talking to me, I'm a planner. So I'm going to plan the strategy around being tax efficient. That's the number one. The second is stay patient and disciplined. A lot of people just want to win the lottery, so to speak, today. But at the end of the day, it's patience and discipline. And any financial planner that would tell you, look, you got to be patient. Let the market do what it's got to do. Let the investments you're invested in take time to incubate and just grow out naturally, as everything does over time. And then let time like I'm saying, let it do the heavy lifting, because at the end of the day, as long as you've got the right structure in place and you are aligned, those incentives are aligned. The math is not hard. It's just a matter of that structure being in place and letting time do its thing and do the heavy lifting for you.
It sounds like the lesson of the day is keep your investments boring.
Yes.
Just listen to what your mother said. Listen to your accountant.
That's right. Yep.
Over time and that's boring. But again, if you want excitement, you'd be a day trader, right?
Well, yeah, that's a little too exciting for me, because again, it's where's the plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. So that type of clarity does create some boundaries, or they should. And not everyone fits inside them. So who should not work with you, even if they have the money?
So There are actually three types that don't fit with me. So people looking for a product instead of a plan. I get a lot of questions like, what's the right thing? What's the right product to invest in? What is the right investment? There's a plethora of investments you can invest in. There really is. But at the end of the day, what's the proper plan you put in place with those investments? And we can talk about all the different asset classes. So the idea is, how do we plan all these asset classes and make sure they're tax efficient? And we've already got the built-in growth, because if we're looking for growth, we want to make sure that we've got proven performance, okay? People won't engage in the thinking. If you're not engaged in the thinking as to what we're going to try to design for you, that's kind of a non-starter. And then people who want speed without accountability. Well, again, back to speed can be your enemy. And so let's do it strategically and make sure we're accountable for every stage we move forward with. And we're always getting it into an annual review and make sure that our trajectory is the same as what we planned the year before. And if we don't, well, let's pivot from there. And maybe we might have to maneuver a little bit to just make sure we're back on track. So if someone won't slow down enough to build that properly, I can't really help them as to where they want to go.
I guess as a consultant, one of the biggest challenges or disappointments is when you give somebody good advice and they just don't take it. So when people ignore this way of thinking altogether, there's going to be consequences. So let's go there. If a business owner ignores this way of thinking that you're prescribing for the next 10 or 15 years, what's the pattern? What's the inevitable outcomes that you see?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I've actually had people come back to me and said, I should have taken your advice. But as here and there, it's just a matter of, look, you gotta use the proper things. You gotta earn well, but keep less than they expect. So that's the problem, is that they've earned very well, but they kept less than what they expected. So they had this perception they were going to keep a lot in their pocket. And then they realized, wow, there was a lot of taxation, or they spent their money in the improper ways, or they lost on some investment that was, higher risk than not. And so those are the types of things that happen. They work longer than they'd planned. So, Freedom 55, I don't know, it used to be a slogan, but it's more like Freedom 65 is actually going to be a realistic plan. Can we get to 65 and retire? Or are we looking at in our 70s to retire? And then as they eventually realize income isn't the same as wealth, which is, to me, the difference between affluence and wealth, it's not the same word. Wealth is what we're trying to preserve for you so that it lasts you, and you want your money to outlive you at the end of the day. So none of this is dramatic. It's just predictable.
Wow, that's a powerful way to frame it. That's pretty interesting. So let's close with this. So if someone repeated one sentence from this conversation to their partner tonight, what should it be?
I like this one. Real wealth isn't built with better investments. It's built with better structure. And that's kind of what the whole flavor of this conversation has been. It's like, let's get that structure in place properly. Let's find the right investments. But at the end of the day, it isn't built with better investments. It's make sure we got the right structure to preserve the wealth.
Fantastic. So Mauro, this whole conversation today wasn't about what's the best investment to buy here and there. It was really about how you think about the process, and how that thinking has a positive impact to your clients. So thanks for bringing in that perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're welcome.
Yeah. So Mauro, for people watching who recognize themselves in this conversation, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and your team?
The simplest way is just go straight to my website. It's cwa.life, and that'll give people the clear sense of how we think and if we're a good fit for you. And if that resonates, well, my team can take it from there.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks. And viewers, make sure we'll have the link on the screen and in the comments below. So listen, if you're looking for solid direction from someone who truly understands the structure behind wealth, reach out to Mauro and his team. They'll take the time to understand where you're at and point you in the right direction. So again, this conversation wasn't about what to buy. It's about how you think. So Mauro, thanks for being a guest on Top Dog Tips.
Thank you, Greg. Much appreciated.
So as always, be positive, be kind to each other, and above all, make good decisions. This is the Top Dog, Greg Belanger, signing off. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode of Top Dog Tips. You want more Top Dog tips? Head over to yyccalgarybusiness.ca and subscribe so you never miss another episode. So do you have someone in mind who should be on our show? Tap the Be a Guest link on our homepage to apply. And if you're looking to raise your profile in your Calgary business community, join the YYC Calgary Business Network by signing up for a free business listing, and also check out our shop club designed to drive even more visibility and sales to your business. So until next time, stay visible, stay positive, and keep leading the pack. This is the Top Dog, Greg Belanger, signing off.